Radio Gibraltar News.
Good afternoon, it's 1:30. I'm Kellyanne Turnbull. Gibraltar's security level remains at substantial following the terrorist attack at Westminster yesterday, which has claimed 4 lives and resulted in 40 injured. Gibraltar's Civil Contingencies Committee met yesterday to review the rock security after the incident. Cristina Cortés has more.
8 arrests have been made in raids, with inquiries continuing in Birmingham, London and other parts of the country. Head of counter-terrorism Mark Rowley says their belief is that the attacker acted alone and was inspired by international terrorism. The incident saw a man drive his car straight into pedestrians on Westminster Bridge. He then ran to the Houses of Parliament, stabbing a police officer who later died from his injuries. The assailant himself also died after being shot by other officers. The attack claimed the life of a woman in her 40s and a man in his 50s. 7 of the wounded are in a critical condition, with a further 29 having been treated in hospital. Gibraltar's Contingencies Council met yesterday afternoon after the incident in London to consider the implications of the event with regards to the rock's security, saying there's no specific intelligence to suggest a threat relating to Gibraltar. However, the GCC will continue to closely monitor events in the UK capital. The Royal Gibraltar Police says its operational posture will remain under review, adding the public can expect to see an increased police presence over the coming days. The public is asked to remain vigilant and to report any security concerns to the police.
The Chief Minister and Deputy Chief Minister have expressed their sympathies following the incident. Fabian Picardo, who was in meetings in the capital when the attack took place, said there was a sense of shock as people came to terms with the unfolding event. Mr. Picardo and Joseph Garcia praised the courage and public spirit of the Metropolitan Police and said their prayers were with the families and friends of those killed, injured or caught up in such an appalling attack. Queues of up to 2 hours were experienced at the frontier yesterday. A Borders and Coast Guard agency spokesperson told GBC the Guardia Civil were performing extensive checks on nearly every car leaving Gibraltar. The queues began at around 3 and led to traffic tailbacks into town, and GBC understands there may have been an incident at the frontier relating to tobacco smuggling. Gibraltar could be losing an important financial services product following new legislation where the British government has imposed a 25% levy on pensions transferred from the UK. Qualifying Recognised Overseas Pension Scheme, or QROPs, have formed part of the ROC's financial services offering over the past 5 years. Around 80% of the QROPs here are owned by people living outside the EEA, which makes them eligible to the new tax. This could prove a deterrent for those considering moving their pensions to Gibraltar. This is Senior Finance Centre Executive Michael Ashton.
In terms of the existing business we have here, the administrators and the trustees will continue to manage and administer that business on behalf of their clients. But what they would have been expecting is that more business would come in on an annual basis. And I think we have to accept that the likelihood is that the amount of new business coming into Gibraltar is going to decline over the next few years.
A family home in St John's Court suffered extensive damage on Wednesday night after a fire broke out in a bedroom. It took 11 firefighters about 20 minutes to extinguish the blaze initially, only to be called back about 1 hour later when the fire started again. The bedroom was destroyed and there was extensive smoke damage to the rest of the first floor property. An adjacent shed was also damaged. The family were not in the flat when the fire started and no injuries were reported, but the damage was such that housing department officials were called in to help the tenants find alternative accommodation. A spokesperson for the Fire and Rescue Service told GBC the cause is being investigated. An interview with Deputy Chief Fire Officer Colin Ramirez will follow this bulletin. The Environmental Safety Group has raised the government's lack of progress on the sewage treatment plant. It will be making it one of its key objectives for the year and include it in a list of objectives that will publish shortly. The ESG claims that after the awarding of the tender 2 years ago, there have been no further signs that the project is underway. It will be taking the matter up with the government. An appeal against a 2-year prison sentence has been dismissed by the Court of Appeal. Wayne Old of 28 Schomburg requested a review of his sentence after pleading guilty to 1 count of dangerous driving and 1 count of inflicting grievous bodily harm. Katie Docker has the details.
The charges date back to November 2014, when Old was said to be driving at over 100 kilometres an hour before his car crashed into a lamppost near the Sundial roundabout. The accident resulted in 2 men ending up in hospital. Acting on Old's behalf, lawyer Andrew Cardona claimed the 2-year sentence was manifestly excessive and out of line with other sentences imposed in similar cases. The Court of Appeal judges accepted it was difficult to fit the case into the guidelines set. However, They ultimately dismissed the appeal, saying they felt all mitigating factors had been considered when handing down the sentence originally.
Fines imposed by the Magistrates' Court are set to increase on the 1st of April. A spokesperson for the Gibraltar Court Service said entry points for fines have not changed much for more than 15 years. He did not confirm by how much the fines would increase, but said it will be within existing statutory levels. The court spokesperson said higher fines should be more accurately reflect the seriousness of matters coming before the court. Representatives from the European Commission are expected today to see firsthand how Gibraltar has benefited from EU structural funds. The Gibraltar EU Programme Secretariat has organised a number of visits to numerous projects that have been co-funded by the EU. As part of the programme, members of the delegation will meet with beneficiaries and stakeholders, as well as Dr. Joseph Garcia, Minister for Europe. Well, that's the latest.